Good afternoon, Ade Oladipo, Simon Jordan and Spencer Oliver with us. This is the Boxing Hour on talkSPORT every Thursday, as you know. Loads going on in boxing, including a big fight this weekend. A WBA world title shot is in reach for Oscar Duarte and Kenneth Sims Jr., who will seize victory in Chicago, Illinois. Watch this Sunday live only on DAZN. Just sign up right now to DAZN.com/boxing.
Boxing update on talkSPORT with DAZN, the global home of boxing. Buy now at DAZN.com/boxing.
All right, let's touch on this Francisco Rodriguez situation with the WBC. Francisco Rodriguez fought Galal Yafai a couple of months back. It came out that in his post-fight drug test, he had failed for the drug substance called heptaminol, which is under investigation, or was under investigation by the British Boxing Board of Control and UKAD. It does, and this is very important, this part as well. He did tell UKAD and the WBC what he was taking, which did include this drug, heptaminol. Because of that, he has been cleared, and the WBC has now ordered him to fight Galal Yafai again. What do you make of it all?
Well, the problem is that he had a no contest to fight before that as well, back in December.
He did,
if I'm correct, for failing drug tests again,
which I didn't know about.
And fight was ruled no contest. So this one, he said it was an over the counter energy booster that he got, and it had this drug,
which he disclosed.
Yeah, which he disclosed. So we couldn't really sort of argue about that. But it's concerning though that this he's failed now 2 drugs tests in his last couple of fights. The WBC have put him on a 12-month probation and reordered the fight. They've declared it a no contest and reinstated Yafai, the WBC interim champion, and they fight and they go over it again. Look, there's something to it, surely. I mean, the guy can't keep failing drug tests, and I think that do the governing bodies need to get a hold of this even more? Do they need to be more stringent? Simon, I might bring you in on this.
But the interesting thing is, if he's declared it on his pre-fight form, why wasn't the fight stopped?
Great shout.
That's it.
I mean,
there you go.
Where's the diligence?
Yeah.
I mean, for waiting for the post-fight results, he didn't need to. It was on the bloody form.
He's told you prior to fighting what he's taking.
And here's my concern as well with a lot of these fights that happen where the fighter is then found to have taken a performance-enhancing drug or a fouled substance. A lot of the time, they find out about that before the fight takes place. Now, that shouldn't... I mean, you know, where's the credit in that?
The WBC, was it in the fight that he had previously where it was ruled no contest because he had failed a drugs test? Right. Was that fighting for something involving the WBC? Are the WBC somehow not being visible of that knowledge, or why are they giving him 2 benefits of the doubt? We understand that he's declared it on his form, which means that they've got an understanding of their own internal mechanisms. That means that they weren't very good at what they did. Because in the moment I just said, why didn't they just deal with it before the fight was even put forward in terms of the fight was actually undertaken? Because they could have done that. Now, that might be the reasons why, in part, they're going, oh, hang on a second, we've dropped the ball here. But the guy's a recidivist. The guy's done it once before. So how can they have such a very lax attitude towards the fact that he now doesn't get banned? He's on probationary evaluation. And that to me, it shows you that boxing is not taking this particularly seriously.
He should be either... This is from the one in December, which was ruled a no contest. He should be on random drug testing from that point on. This probation that he's on now makes no sense. He should have been suspended from then.
But how does he... How does he... Okay, he declared it on his forms that he's taken this substance. How does the WBC, after failing a drug test in his previous contest, performance-enhancing drugs, by the way, and they declared it a no contest, he's failed this one because he's declared it, that's okay, we'll put him on probation. You go like, that puts the sport into disrepute. God forbid something happens to one of the fighters. Yafai took a serious beating in that fight from round 1 to round 12. He done well to see the final bell. The punch output was incredible. You don't know how that affects that kid moving forward. It was only his 10th contest. He's a former gold medalist himself. Yes, he's 32 years of age, but that could have a profound effect on the rest of his career. So, you know, you look at that and you go like, come on, man, like get a grip of this. WBC can't be just allowing one, you know, it's one rule for one and another rule for another, etc., etc.
But the fascinating thing is he doesn't clearly know it's a banned substance because he's put it down on a form. or whether he actually knows it is a banned substance and he thinks this is a get out of jail card by denoting it and having not been picked up on it. Actually, he gives himself an opportunity to be.
There will be some cynics that think of the latter.
Yeah, well, it must be, mustn't it? I mean, ultimately, he must have.
Especially considering he's failed his last test.
Yeah, and with that in mind, you have to say to yourself, how serious are people about ridding the sports of this particular challenge? Are they going to wait for somebody to be on the end of a very significant outcome, a very bad outcome, find someone fails a drugs test, and all of a sudden the mainstream media are talking about the banning of boxing and the taking down of the sport because people aren't able to enforce drug policies and people are dying in rings as a result of people that are taking PEDs?
Let's hear what Galal Yafai's promoter Eddie Hearn had to say about the situation. He spoke to IFL TV.
I found out last night that Francisco Rodriguez Jr. also failed a drugs test in his fight before Galal Yafai. Because I went onto his box rec and I noticed it was a no contest in Texas. And I thought, but normally on box rec it will tell you why. So we reached out to the Texas Commission, who confirmed that he failed a drugs test. And I'm like, and I want a full report as to what happened in that process. Because we had VADA testing in place for that fight, but if I would have known that Francisco Rodriguez had failed a drugs test on that night, we would have had even more extensive testing. And I also would have said to the WBC, are you sure this guy's eligible for the eliminator? So you're telling me that Francisco Rodriguez has failed a drugs test in two of his last two fights on fight night. He had drugs in his system. And now you want to order the rematch. You've just put, or he's been put, Galal Yafai, in a situation where he has fought a man with performance-enhancing drugs in his system over 12 rounds. Physically, he took a beating that night. This is a disgrace that Galal Yafai has to rematch this guy.
Can I ask a question about the boxing industry? In football, everyone knows everyone else's business. Everyone knows what's going on. Everyone knows what people have got, what they haven't got, and what they haven't got. Is there a reason why a promoter wouldn't know that a fighter had failed a drugs test in his previous fight?
No. I think that
should he know? Should he know if his match? I'm not looking to go after Eddie here, and there is an element of hypocrisy because we had to listen to Eddie rant and rave about what Conor shouldn't have to face, irrespective of the fact that we know there are drugs in Conor's system, and here he is getting on his high horse because it's a different set of circumstances. But is there any reason why the diligence of a promoter making a fight wouldn't know that? Whoever the promoter is, Eddie, Frank, Ben Shalom, Callis Howland, is there any reason why they wouldn't know that when they're making? He
would normally trust the manager of said fighter.
Yeah, but I think there's also, like, this is the confusion here as well, is also with certain governing bodies, certain testing companies. Why do they release it so late? They're saying that, like, if they've known a fighter's failed a test, why do you only hear about it 3 or 4 weeks after that? And you're right, Simon, what you say. I think the promoter, the manager, they should do that. They should do that research into why was his last contest, Rodriguez, a no contest? Surely you're going to know that the reason it was a no contest was because he had performance-enhancing drugs in his system. So there you go. And they go, he's now allowed to box again. So you would have had extensive testing on this guy, knowing what you know, surely.
At what point do people start having a serious look, credentials and credibility-wise, at the WBC and the things that they do? And the manner in which they do them. And I hate to keep revisiting this, but it was a WBC that gave Conor a defence that he never asked for. They volunteered that information. They decided that they were going to provide him with a support mechanism, that he didn't advance that argument. He didn't say it was eggs in his diet. They did. They're putting 47-year-old fighters, irrespective of whether Manny Pacquiao put on a credible performance against a not particularly credible champion, in terms of Mario Barris, in terms of the quality he operates at, and in circumstances like this, where you've now got them sanctioning fights, knowing that someone's already failed a drugs test, then going back and not doing their diligence on fight night to accept the fact that someone's filled in a form with a substance that they should know gets that person banned, and then allowing him to go on probation, and then sanctioning a rematch. And we can go on and on with the WBC about how they operate. At what point is someone going to turn around and fighters are going to start turning around and saying, don't want to fight for your belts, don't want to fight in your space because you don't seem to have the prerequisite amount of quality, care and assurances around your proposition as you possibly should do? Is it all about sanctioning fees? Is it all about the commercial opportunity rather than the reality of the overall responsibility, which is the well-being of fighters?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. The WBC have a history of it, and that is the big problem. You go back to that. You go back to the fight that you were just talking about there with Manny Pacquiao.
Yeah.
46 years of age, hadn't boxed for 3 years. All of a sudden, how do you jump that queue to get that opportunity? Like the WBC, labelling that they're for their title. You go, where's the respect in that? God forbid something happens to this guy. He's been out of the ring. He looked terrible against Ugas in his fight before that one. He could clearly say the best days were over. He isn't going to have improved, and yet you're sanctioning that and giving him the opportunity over all the young fighters that are coming through. There's no... That doesn't make any sense.
With all due respect, and I like Lawrence a lot, putting Lawrence in as number 5 in the WBC because he won the Bridgerweight title. The idea that Dillian White had to wait 3 years as a mandatory challenger to be given a shot because the WBC weren't being particularly facilitatory. You can go on with this list and things about how they operate and start to think to yourself, this eventually will end up hurting the sport and hurting the credibility of the sport. And that's why people like Turki Al-Sheikh, albeit I've not had a 180-degree U-turn, I still think this challenge is as a result of his involvement in the sport, probably makes things look better. It's unlike the best disinfectant, isn't it?
All right. There's been a lot of talk about Anthony Joshua versus Jake Paul. That's not going away. Ben Davison has had his say on it. This is what he said. I don't like it at all. First and foremost, how can people even talk about it? Where's the safety aspect in boxing? Do you know what I mean? This is a serious risk with something going wrong. Unfortunately, it might take something like that for people to be like, hold on, we've got to reconfigure this. But somebody would pass it, somebody would allow it, somebody would sanction it. Is that talk done? Is that still a thing?
Well, I think that's
on your WhatsApp chat.
Listen, I think that's sensible talk there from Ben Davison. Because when you look at it and you weigh it up, we go, yeah, look, commercially it would sell, and Jake Paul brings his fans. But the nonsense that they're talking, and I heard Nikita talking about it as well.
Nikita,
yeah. I heard him talking about it, saying that well, Jake Paul's improving, and Anthony just come on, mate. That we're a million miles away here, and there is a possibility that someone like Jake Paul could get seriously hurt by Anthony Joshua if he took one. And so I don't like that talk. I think that hopefully that talk now does disappear and we see Anthony Joshua going down a different route and finishing his career against credible boxers, because they're miles apart, them two.
Yeah, I mean, it's too big. The disparity is incredible. Anthony Joshua is not by any shot worn, is he? I mean, for Jake Paul to even stand a chance in that one. Dave Allen coming off that really good win against Johnny Fisher. I was there at the Copper Box. He looked good. Now it's rumoured that his next opponent will be Arslanbek Makhmudov.
Yep.
Which I'd never, ever would have put together 12 months ago, and it's going to happen. We're here in October 11th. What do you make of that, Makhmudov versus Allen?
Listen, it's a great fight for Dave Allen. Makhmudov was feared. We go
rightly so. He's the scariest looking person ever, isn't he?
He is, mate.
He did.
Yeah, but going into that fight with Ade Oladipo, we looked at that and you go, Cabiel's in for a hard night here, mate. It's not a matter of if, but when he gets knocked out. And Cabiel just took it to him and stole the soul, really, of Makhmudov and come out of a credible performance. Makhmudov has lost since then, but he's a scary guy, mate. He's got that little twitch, isn't he? Like when the neck just sort of goes. Giant of a man. 19 of his 20 victims, I will say, were knocked out cold very, very early. He's very heavy-handed. It's a massive step up. Credit to Dave Allen for taking the fight, but Makhmudov, if Allen can get through those first 3 or 4 rounds, we've got a fight, man.
Allen never been down, never been stopped.
No, he's a tough guy.
Yeah,
tough guy.
Good one.
It's an interesting fight. I mean, Makhmudov is like the love child of Nikolai Valuev, isn't he? That sort of look, doesn't he? But he will have lost the luster or the aura has been taken away from him now, isn't it?
The bully that got bullied.
It's the aura. That's exactly what it is. Because when he boxed Cabiel, we looked at him, and when he entered that ring, we was all out there in Saudi Arabia, and he walks in there, and he's got that little twitch, and he's a giant of a man, but he's scary to look at as well.
Yeah.
There should be. Yeah, he's just one of those guys that you just go, you don't want none of that. So that aura was all around him, and it was taken away by Cabiel. Once you lose that aura, like fighters in the past, well, Mike Tyson had that aura, didn't he?
Absolutely.
When he got beat by Douglas, you looked at that and you just go, that aura had left him, and Makhmudov's that guy.
That being said, Dave Allen's an underdog, no?
Yeah, he's got to be an underdog. Absolutely, yeah, he's got to be an underdog. I mean, I credit him for taking the fight, because there was a whole lot of opportunities out there. And Makhmudov, where did that one come from? That was nearly as insane as Tony Oka or Anthony Joshua.
Indeed it was. Spence, where are you next? I see you popping up at every single gym, ringside, everywhere. Making a coin here, coin there, everywhere, aren't you? Saw you with Roy Jones recently.
I'm going to have a little chat with my agent, Simon Jordan, after the show, see where we go from here. What do you reckon, Simon?
Where can you get him next, Simon?
Where can you get me, mate?
Yeah, who knows?
What are you laughing for?
Who knows? Simon's got plans for you. That's why Simon's got plans for you. Spence, really appreciate you coming on. Simon, thank you very much for coming as well. Thank you, everyone, to listening and watching the show. When we come back, it is Paul Hawksbee and Charlie Baker.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.